Hi, welcome to Think Tech. We are raising public awareness about technology, energy, diversification every single day. This show is center stage. I'm sorry I'm a little discombobulated today. We're running a little bit late. I apologize for that. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumakuhua Theater, and I am also the managing director of Kumakuhua Theater. Today, I have the privilege and the honor of talking with John Flax, who is the artistic director of Theater Grottesco in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is a groundbreaking theater. John is a performer, a designer, a creator, and other things, others that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Without further ado, I would like to welcome you, John Flax. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I wish I were really actually here with you.
It was so nice. Okay, so now I get a chance to see you. That's wonderful. It was so nice to meet you. It's been over a year and a half ago now.
Something like that.
Since we met at the Net Fest here. And I have to say that prior to that, I was introduced to you because of your work developing Theater Grottesco and my work here with Kumakuhua Theater, and you were very helpful to us and to our board of directors in our evolution. So thanks again for that.
Here, I'm glad that's working out.
Yeah, I'm really glad that that brought us together, and anytime you want to come back out, I'd love to see you.
I'll be later this month.
Yay! All right, come on. So let's talk about Theater Grottesco right off the bat. What would you say in your elevator speech about the theater?
We're a 32-year-old company. We do devised work. We experiment with physical styles as a way to challenge the form of theater in its contemporary versions.
Ooh, okay, that sounds interesting. And what is that? Can you tell us about your most recent show so we can have an actual example of how that plays itself out?
We're working on a show right now called The Moment of Yes. And we're interested in that tiny chemical moment that happens when a proposition is made and after deliberation the answer is yes. And it could mean that a friendship is made for life, or a great adventure is embarked on. And we're also aware of the opposite, that the moment of no, when the game is over, it's done at that point.
Ooh. And is your audience engaged in any way other than the group of people sitting in the dark watching this happen?
We put out periodic newsletters that talk about the research that's going on in the rehearsal hall. And they're invited, we ask them questions, and they're invited to respond, and that actually feeds into the show in some ways.
Oh, okay. Very cool. And I imagine you have a strong, loyal following there in Santa Fe.
We've got a great following here, yeah.
And is your theater space, is it strictly your theater space, or do you travel?
We do just one show a year. So we used to tour a lot, enough so that we'd wake up in the morning and not know where we were. And when we moved to Santa Fe in 1996, we started doing bigger shows. And so we really came off the road, and we just did one show for a long run in Santa Fe each year. And we would spend a year building that show.
Oh, wow. So at any given time, you're running a show and building the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so your shows are all devised by the company.
Yes.
Yeah. And where do those ideas begin?
This show, this moment of yes came through probably about a year of bouncing around ideas around a table about communication and how people communicate or don't. And that really led to this pinnacle moment, the moment of yes. But the show is really about how we communicate with each other. So there was a great example of an older woman who is a teacher of English language as a second language, and she had she's American. She had a Chinese woman, much younger, who didn't speak a word of English, and they went through their laborious lesson, I think, and And the Chinese woman got up and went to the bathroom. And while she was there, the American woman was feeling stiff and thought she would do some yoga exercises. So she was working on the floor, doing some floor stretching, and the Chinese woman came back, unbeknownst to the American woman. And she kind of watched for a while, the Chinese woman, and then she assumed that this was some part of the ritual. And there was the moment of yes, and she joined her. And when the American woman realized what was going on, they did yoga together, and they're now great friends, and they go on walks together. They still don't speak much together, but they're great friends.
Oh,
and so
wow.
we took that as an inspiration.
What an awesome diving board, you know, to leap off of. And I have to say, personally, this really resonates with me. I'm sure everybody has a yes story like this somewhere along the line. But when I moved here to Hawaii, I decided that I was going to say yes to everything. Just say yes to everything. So an absolute stranger called me and said, I hear you're the new managing director. I'd like to take you to lunch. And I said, yes. And someone said, let's go on this hike together. Yes. And that, when you play that game in real life, it's very, very exciting. I did go to a yoga class with someone, but I can't say that I spontaneously decided it was a form of communication and did it.
Well, it's certainly a form of yes. It happened right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So your company, how many people are in the company?
You know, we're kind of a collective of 13 people. And people come and go. Some people haven't been in a show or even been involved in a show in many years. Others don't necessarily perform anymore, but they work behind the scenes and they direct or help write or choreograph. So really, each show we lay out there and say, here's the idea for a show. Who wants to participate? And we build around the team that is available.
So the skills that the performance skills that come to the table, I know that you studied at the Jacques Lecoq's school, so you have a background in clown and acrobatics.
And really classic styles of theater, from commedia dell'arte to Greek tragedy to buffoon and classic melodrama. There's 6 of us in the company that are Lecoq graduates.
Oh, okay. So very physical, as well as cerebral work.
Yeah, it's always physical.
Yeah. How many seats do you have in your theater? How large is it?
You know, we don't have a theater. We just have a rehearsal hall. So we play once a year, and it depends on the show. We'll move around and find the right venue. And actually, we had a run of about, I think, 12 or 13 years where we went into empty buildings and turned them into theaters. But basically, we like 100 to 150 seats, so that it's very intimate.
Okay, and that's what I was wondering, whether you wanted to keep the work intimate.
Yeah, when we toured, we would play where they put us. And we realized after a while that the 800-seat theaters, our work isn't really built for that.
Yeah, well, it's a completely different show if you're going there for that kind of an audience. And how I love it working in intimate theaters. I think it offers such freedom because a breath matters in a smaller theater. Yeah, so there's a great deal of freedom in that. There's also a great deal of responsibility that comes with that kind of intimacy with your audience.
Yeah, and it's really what theater does best, I believe.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's what theater does best.
I think so too.
An intimate experience.
Yeah. So let's talk, can we talk a little bit about the inception of Theater Grotesque? Where did it begin?
Let's see, it began with another company that spent 6 months of the year in Paris and 6 months in Minneapolis. And that company was called the Théâtre de la Jeune Lune, and it was another Lecoq company. I joined them and was with them for 2 years, and then left and went to Paris to study with Lecoq. And while I was there, Didier Mocot, a Frenchman who had been in the company when I was in the company, just rang me up one day and said, I have a show I've written for the two of us. Let's get together and do this. And so we did, and we played at a festival, or we submitted it to a festival, and they said, it looks like a great play, but you have to be a company. You can't just be a play. And so Grottesco really started as a lark to submit that play. And so we did, and we won the festival, and that gave us contracts across Europe. And by the time we were done with those, we had another play, and here we are, 32 years later.
How many years later?
32.
32 years later. Wow. And you were in. That's really incredible. A lot of personal growth goes along with being a part of the same organization for 32 years. John?
You're right. You're right. How do you do that?
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. We'll get into that in the second segment a little bit more. But let's start off with you. So you were in Paris for how many years?
We were there for about 6 years, and originally the idea was that we would build our work in Paris, but we would always bring new work to the States and tour it, because we knew it was unusual there, and we really wanted to challenge the American model. So that was our model for a couple of years, and this was pre-internet, so we were waking up at midnight to make telephone calls to the US to set up tours. And we kind of, that was a bit of a stretch. And so after a while, we thought, okay, let's just move to the States and we'll do it from there.
Ah, okay. And then you went to Detroit. What made you choose Detroit?
Well, let's see, the principals at that time, Elizabeth Wiseman and myself. Elizabeth was from Seattle and I was from Minneapolis. And they're both big theater towns. And we really wanted a place where we didn't have to compete. We wanted to just be able to do our work and grow as a company. So as we toured, we let people know that we were looking for a home. And we did a wonderful residency in Detroit with the Attic Theater, which was the largest regional theater in Michigan at the time. And we just resonated with them and thought, well, this is an interesting place to be. And so we went to the Arts Council and said, we're looking for a home. And they said, you mean you want to move to Ann Arbor? Because that's the safe place. And we said, no, actually, we quite like Detroit. And they said, well, we will make you learn to love Michigan. And we were there for 8 years, and we loved Michigan. It was great.
Yeah. It's a little cold and snowy there right now.
It's a long winter.
When were you, what years were you in Detroit?
We were there from, I believe, 87 until 96.
Oh my gosh. I was in Detroit one of the years you were there. I wish I had the opportunity to see your work. I can imagine. Do you have, along with your ensemble and the work that you do you offer classes?
We do, yeah, and we do them whenever we have a break in the schedule and can do that. We travel a lot for classes, and then we offer master classes here in Santa Fe as well.
And what are the titles of those classes generally?
Oh, there's a huge variety. We work with all the styles, and that's about a dozen classes from, classic commedia dell'arte and neutral mask to text for dancers and gesture-based work, with lots of mask work and styles in between.
Oh, awesome. Well, I have to tell you, since my announcement went out that I was interviewing you on my show, I've already gotten a few emails of people asking, oh my gosh, is Theater Grottesco here? So maybe we can drum up enough excitement about you to bring you out here for some master classes.
Oh, that would be great fun. And we actually, we opened last year a lecture performance that we do. It has no tech requirements, and it's 2 actors that travel with a suitcase. And we run through all those classic styles and not only demonstrate them, but talk about how each of them came from a political or social movement that was happening at the time historically. And that's something that people don't even really get in theater school. It's interesting to think that this art form that we're in really was a voice of the people in so many ways.
Yeah, well, yes, yes. When you put together your shows, you said for your current show, The Moment of Yes, the inspiration wasn't really grounded in anything that is going on politically at the moment. Do you seek to make that an element in your work?
You know, it really depends. We try to avoid kind of locking a show into a time period so that it becomes outdated very quickly. And so we work more conceptually. And The Moment of Yes is more, I think it's more a reaction going in the opposite direction of current politics. We're trying to bring some happiness and some joy and some transformation to our audiences with this show, so that we all remember that that's a possibility.
Oh, nice. And you can't really say yes and benefit from it if you have a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty timeless message, that how magical that can be in all of our lives. And politics.
Politics, ooh, it's a black hole, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an awful lot of no going on there.
Yeah, it's kind of the center of no.
Yeah. So, so your company works for, you rehearse, tell me a little bit about the schedule, about the amount of time that goes into the development and the rehearsal of your shows.
Well, it's evolving, but there was a time for many, many years we would rehearse for 6 to 8 months, and we would start with just several days a week, probably 6 or 8 hours a week, until we had enough material and vision clarified so that we could spend more time. So it would be this gradual avalanche leading up to the opening of a show, and by the end we were rehearsing 40 hours a week. And now we're with this show, we're actually dialing it back some. We realized that because the work is so physical, it's very tightly choreographed. And we would spend many, many hours on the choreography and getting each moment and each breath very precisely played. And now we're stepping back from that and saying, well, let's just trust that the actors are going to be able to do that. And in fact, let's put them on stage under-rehearsed so that they're nervous and they're wide awake and they're ready to make up for whatever might happen. Let's make some things happen on stage that are unplanned.
Oh, wow. That's thrilling, John. That's thrilling for your performers as well as your audience.
I think so,
yeah. We have to take a quick break. See, I told you the time was going to go really fast. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Here's the deal. I'm Jay Fidel. I'm the host of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, which is the Energy Policy Forum's program on Wednesday. That's how we call Wednesday Energy Wednesday. We call it Energy Wednesday every Wednesday. Are you surprised? Okay, and we try to get guys like Jim Alberts here from Hawaiian Electric who can tell us what's really going on in energy. We want to be informed. It's so important. It's the most important initiative in our state. Clean energy is major, okay? And that's why we cover it on this show. That's the deal. What do you think, Sharon?
I think that's great. That's why we're here every Wednesday from 4 to 5, and we hope you all join us so we can hear people like Jim coming on our show and co-host Ray Starley from Hawaii Energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here today. You've seen this. You heard what she said. What do you think?
I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people to come together and talk about the issues. Oftentimes there isn't a good forum to bring these key issues out into the public, and this is a tremendous way to go about it. And the activity of this show is essential to keep talking about energy, because as you said, it's such an essential part of our lives that we need to pay attention to it, and we need to think about the future.
Okay, Ray, your turn.
Well, this is a special time in the history of Hawaii where we're making some pretty radical changes in the way we use energy and generate energy. And this show is the one place you can count on coming to every Wednesday and hearing something about the latest issues that are on the table, being discussed, that will affect us all going forward. So come join us, and if you have some ideas you want to share with us about energy, give us a call and let us know. We'll put you up here and let you talk for an hour. So come see us.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Jim. It's great to be, from Think Tech's point of view, it's great to have this show. We love the show. It's our most important show. So come around and listen to us 4 to 5 on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, my name is Andrew Howard. I'm an astronomer at the Institute for Astronomy at the University of Hawaii up in Manoa. I'd like to tell you about the annual open house that we're having this year. It is on April 6th, 11 to 4 p.m. It's an all ages event, kids, grown-ups, even people in between. Everyone is welcome. We have a lot of really fun activities. You get to meet astronomers, look at yourself in an infrared camera, play with Legos, make robots, look at videos. You can even make some of the kids like to make comets out of gravel and snow. Even adults like to do that too. You'll be able to look at the sun with a solar camera safely. It's really a great activity. We do this every year in April, and I hope to see you this year. Thanks.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhoi Theater. And I would just like to let you know that we stream our shows live every Monday through Friday on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And you can tune in and watch any of our shows live on thinktechhawaii.com. Just click on live stream. And you can also see all of our shows archived. You can find them from thinktechhawaii.com or just go to YouTube and look up Think Tech Hawaii. I am talking with John Flax, who is the artistic director of Theater Grottesco in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is very groundbreaking theater that practices a form of devised theater that brings together a very strong ensemble of people with various backgrounds and abilities to create works that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So welcome, John. Thank you so very much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And now, okay, so let's go back a little bit more if we could. Can we explore John Flax, since you are one of the founding members of this theater? I'd like to talk a little bit about your background that took you from Milwaukee to Paris in the first place. Did you, were you a theater goer as a child?
You know, I wasn't. I grew up in Minneapolis, actually, and I got taken to the Guthrie Theater every year as a student. We all packed in a bus and went down there, and it never really did anything for me, to be honest with you. So I was really in that camp of people who just didn't buy it. And then I saw these Lecoq performers, and suddenly it was alive, like I'd never imagined theater could be, and that hooked me. And I was actually writing at the time, and so I'd been going to theater classes to try to figure out how an actor can play many different roles, with the idea that, okay, as a writer, you've got to write all these different roles. And as an interesting aside, there are people who've said that they analyzed Shakespeare plays, and Shakespeare actually relied on his performers. So they can track from play to play. The syntax is different from this character to that character to that character, and with the assumption that that performer was probably playing the same role and giving Shakespeare a lot of the basis of those texts.
Oh. So wait a minute, you were going to see theater and it wasn't really doing it for you, but you were studying playwriting?
Playwriting and how actors create different roles. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I was doing that because I was writing a novel, so that was my angle into theater was fiction.
Oh, okay, so story.
Yeah. Story,
okay. And the Jacques Lecoq performers came to Minneapolis?
They were there, actually. They again, it was the start of the Théâtre de Junelun. It was couple years before they actually formed, and there was a couple first. There was an American woman and a French actor, and they did a two-person show that was just, one of those life-changing things that you saw.
How old were you?
I was in my 20s. I was working on a doctorate in education at the University of Northern Colorado, and writing a novel in lieu of a dissertation.
Oh, awesome. Wow. Quite something in your 20s, weren't you?
Oh, I don't know about that. I was flailing around a bit.
Okay. And then this idea of the actors working to help the playwright is a very different form. A lot of playwrights I've interviewed on this show sort of they like to sort of work in a bubble.
Yeah.
That's one way to go about it, and there's another exchange way to work through the process, and that's obviously what spoke to you. And then what did you do with that?
Well, I ended up joining that company and kind of saying to them, listen, I can write, and I see that you're creating, you're doing devised works, and I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm joining your company. And so they put me in small roles in the beginning, and I would actually record rehearsals, so I had all those texts during the day, and at night I would transcribe them and take them to the next step and present them the next day, and the company would develop them further even. And after 2 years, I was doing much larger roles, major roles, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I decided I should go to Lecoq, go to the source, and get my feet on the ground that way.
Oh, wow. And were you, this sort of work requires a lot of physical awareness as well as storytelling physically, and certainly Lecoq work is very, very physical. Had you been an athlete before then, or how were you in tune with your instrument?
Yeah, I'd been an athlete, and recently before that, before joining them, I'd worked for Outward Bound in Colorado. And then actually, when I got to Lecoq and realized that neutral mask draws on the natural world so much, there was a real affinity there that was easy for me.
Oh, okay, very cool. So, and mask work is very, very different. I mean, we all work with our mask to some extent, the one that we walk around with every day, but when you get into actually working with the most popular mask, the little red nose, that and others is transformative, to say the least. Did you feel a natural affinity for that?
I did. I really had a great time at Lecoq, and again, spending 2 years with the Lecoq company first gave me a great leg up. So then it was just this beautiful, rich 2 years of understanding what I'd been doing the 2 years previous.
Oh, I bet.
And each of the mask styles has its own architecture and its own spirit, and so they're delineated that way. I had also a great experience while I was there. Lecoq was asked to do his lecture demonstration called Tout Bouge, Everything Moves, in Hong Kong, and so he needed to translate it into English, and he knew I was a writer, so he hired me to translate for him. And it was a 3-month period of going very deeply into his philosophy with his wife, who's Scottish, as an intermediary. So, I would translate some things, and she would explain what I'd done to him, and he would come back and say, no, that's not quite it. It's more like this. And I would say, oh, of course, that's brilliant, and let me get that down. And so it was a great experience.
Oh, wow. Do you still write novels?
No, I don't have time for that. And, I've got to admit that I was never much of a writer. When we talk about the great playwrights in American theater and in world theater, I was not threatening those people by any stretch of the imagination. But the writing I do now is the texts that Grottesco does. We all kind of pitch in and write those, and work with each other. And we think of them more as utilitarian texts. They're not literary by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, well, but they're telling a story from A to B.
Yeah.
And C and D. Okay. And why do you think that you prefer this form of theater to more traditional? A Sam Shepard piece.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. My sense is that there are styles of theater that have gone through time, and each one has gotten to a point where the audience understands the style so well that there's no more surprise there anymore in the form. And we're in that in American theater right now. The predominant theater that starts with a writer, and then it's the job of the director to help the actors to put up this piece. There's formula in it, and the audience understands the formula now, so we can't shock them, we can't surprise them. And we've really taken one of the legs of a three-legged stool off the stool. So what's left is craft and tech, or craft and text, but we've lost that great element of surprise that theater can do. So really, that's my interest now is to kind of explore new form and see if some of that can be brought into modern theater to bring that surprise back.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd like to pick it up right there and talk about how that idea is actually physically manifested in the work. Just a little taste of it, if we could. Okay.
Sure.
We'll be right back with Center Stage. Please stay put.
Hi, I'm your host on Think Tech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, Think Tech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia, and by Asia we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hi, we are back with Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukokoi Theater. I am talking with John Flax, who is the AD of Theater Grottesco in Santa Fe, which is a theater that I find absolutely fascinating. So without further ado, let's get right back into the conversation. So John, you talked about you bring the element of surprise back to theater. You break the bonds of the formula. So now that you've had a good 36 seconds to think about it, could you please share with us an example of bringing surprise to your audience?
Yeah, I'll give you a few. There's a great writer in Santa Fe that we know very well, Howard Corder, who's well known for the Boys Club. I think he was up for a Pulitzer for that. And he said one day after seeing one of our shows, he said, what you do is it's like a musical, only instead of breaking into song at those big emotional moments, you guys break into movement, and it'll be a different style of movement depending on the show. And so anytime we can say something without words, we will. And emotion is a great example for that. I think that words are not always the best way to describe how we're feeling, and movement can be much more powerful. So when we get to those moments, we almost always will do it in silence and movement. Another example that is a discovery that we've made in the research we're doing with the moment of yes is the moments when we sit down and we tell a very simple story. And as the actor is telling that story, he has a chorus with him. So the whole cast, there's only 4 people, but they're sitting together, and the stories are all we stories, because remember, this is the moment of yes. So when the storyteller begins, they'll say something like, "Do you remember when we?" And the others will say, "Oh yeah," and they're there as this chorus as they're telling the story. They're saying, "Oh yeah," and they're of course remembering the story with them, and then they can also break into sound, into percussive sound that supports the story, or into gesture that can support the story. And so it takes a very simple thing like telling a story, and it almost infuses it with tragedy, Greek tragedy, in the sense that there's a chorus now telling this story, even though it's a very simple quotidian story. But it takes on this whole new element that is surprising for audiences. They look and they say, "Ooh, what are they doing? What is that?" And that's good. That's where we want to be.
Oh yeah, and viscerally moving.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
By four instead of one, we're used to one person sitting on a stage and telling a story, but having this chorus with you, it becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah, there's got to be some scientific reason for that. That chorus, the way it attaches itself in our brains, the way we accept that information, it just is more moving when there are several people moving forward as one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've got some pictures. Let's show the pictures. Zuri, is John going to be able to see these as we go through them? You can't see them. Okay, so, well, he sent these to me, and I think there's only 8, so we should be able to get through these. There's bodies laying around on the floor and people leaping upstage.
That's called The Richest Dead Man Alive. And it was a show that we did in the 80s. We opened it, and it's about insurance fraud. Just normal, everyday people find themselves in debt, and they're trying to figure out how to get out. And they realize that if they sign homeless people up for insurance policies with themselves as the beneficiaries, and then they kill them, they'll get the insurance money. The shocking thing about it was that 15 years later, we actually read that happening in Los Angeles in the paper. But this is a farce and quite a dark one, but it's very funny as well.
Oh my goodness. How stirring. Okay, the next one has 2 people in partial masks that are just cheeks and nose.
Oh, that's a very early show called The Insomniacs. And it was 2 people in the middle of the night who can't sleep. And it's a show with very little text, and the text that's used is an invented text. So we wanted to see if we could play it all over the world and have people understand it. And they did. Mostly because we worked very hard, so we knew exactly what we were saying, and they did too.
Awesome. I think one of the most beautiful things about mask work is that when your face is immobile or effectively immobile, is so much more comes out through your body.
Mm-hmm. And through your face too.
Yeah, the rest of your face and your voice. When you have a mask, you can use your voice with. So Zuri went to another shot. What have we got here? We've got a, looks like a boat in the moon.
We Know Madman. That's a show about the future when the world's a desert and there's one cloud that travels around the world. And these people riding on that ship have been sent out by their village to find, to save them somehow.
So beautiful. What have you got next there, Zuri? I'd love to explore every one of these shows. Well, this looks like a warehouse and or a shipyard, maybe. How to describe this? There's oil. There's a oil can pirate. Is it a pirate? You think?
Those are that's called the Angel's Cradle, and those are. We're working in the style of buffoon, which is a little-known style that predated clown. It was about outcasts, and we made it modern, and these actually are people that live beneath the streets of a large city in contemporary times, and they have their own world down there. And they used to go above ground at night and stuff to find food, but they've stopped doing that because it's too dangerous. And one night, a homeless man hears sounds coming from a manhole, and he breaks into their world. And it's about this culture clash between this homeless guy and these people living underground.
What was the name of the style? What did you say?
It's buffoon is the style. And the show is called The Angel's Cradle. We played it in New York, and the New York Public Library has asked to archive it permanently.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, here comes the next one. Zuri, why don't you go ahead and run the photos? Well, I know we're limited on time, and we'll just go ahead and wrap up our discussion while we look at these beautiful images. So, John, you tour quite a bit. What do you have on your schedule coming up?
We're working on 4 different shows in the pipeline. The Moment of Yes opens in May. Consider This as our lecture demonstration, and we're actually working with an actor from Bogota, Colombia, who's translating it, and we're subverting the translation, and we're calling the show The Translator. So he actually takes over the show at times, unbeknownst to the lecturer.
Oh, amazing. That's so, I love that.
We have another show called Storm, which is about the confluence of all the environmental disasters that are happening that we do in collaboration with a conduction orchestra. And it's a structured improvisation, a complete show. And we're looking to make it a smaller size that we can tour. Originally, there were 15 of us on stage. And there's another show further down the line that I can't tell you the name of or anything about it, because then I'd have to kill you.
Well, then, yeah, don't. Let me know when you can tell us about it. But so how many different venues do you generally tour to throughout the year?
You know, we've just started to tour again. For many years, we didn't tour at all. And let's see, in the last year, we did a 3-week tour in Colombia, and we played in New York and Chicago. We did some touring regionally in Arizona and New Mexico. And that's kind of light. We're just kind of putting our toes back in the water a little bit.
Okay. And any, other than your current, what you're doing with inventing your shows and beginning to tour a little bit more, do you have any other new plans for the theater, or are you just going to continue on that path for a while?
Yeah, we've got our hands full for a couple of years at least.
Yeah. John, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate it. I hope I'd love to travel out to Santa Fe and see you there. I'd also really love to bring at least you and your lovely wife and some of your company members out to this way too, so that some of the actors and audiences here in Hawaii could benefit from you as well.
We would love that, and thank you again for having us, Donna.
Thank you, and thank you for your help again with Kumakubo Theater. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely talking with you.
You will.
And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having you watching us here at Center Stage. I would also like to say a big thank you to our systems engineer, Zuri Bender, who is in my ear, to our house manager, Sachi Slomov, who's right over there. Hi, Sachi, thank you. And to Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Please join us next week, and we will have another exciting show for you here on Center Stage from 2 o'clock to 2:45 every Wednesday afternoon. We'll see you then. Aloha. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is your Think Tech News for Wednesday, March 4th, 2015. Today, the U.S. Justice Department said that a U.S. probe found systematic racial bias and unconstitutional policing that targeted blacks in Ferguson, Missouri, but cleared white officer Darren Wilson there in the fatal shooting of an unarmed black teenager, Michael Brown, in August. The report said police in the St. Louis suburb issued almost all of its traffic citations to blacks as it tried to raise revenue through fines and court fees. Police also targeted blacks for arrests, many on dubious grounds, and spread racial jokes through emails, said the report that was compiled after Michael Brown was killed by Officer Wilson. The report went on to say that officers were promoted in part based on the number of citations they issued, and civilians were seen less as constituents to be protected than as potential offenders and sources of revenue. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder said the city's leaders needed to take immediate action to overhaul a troubled system. Insurgents attacked a Syrian government security building in the northern city of Aleppo today, bombing it and then launching a ground assault. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 20 members of the security forces and 14 insurgents were killed in the attack on the Air Force Intelligence Building. Jihadist groups, including the al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front and the Muhajirin and Ansar armies, claimed responsibility for the attack, which partially destroyed the building. Initial reports suggest the insurgents set off the bomb in a tunnel dug under or near the building in Aleppo, which has long been a focus of fighting between government and insurgent groups. As he wrapped up 3 days of talks today, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that simply demanding Iran's capitulation is no way to get a nuclear deal with the Islamic Republic. This statement appears to be a thinly veiled dig at Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Kerry said that he and Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif made some progress in their negotiations in the Swiss lakeside town of Montreux and would resume them on March 15th. Kerry aides said many obstacles remained before a late March deadline for an outline accord between Iran and 6 world powers. There are still significant gaps and important choices that need to be made, Kerry told reporters after more than 10 hours of talks with Zarif. The U.S. Supreme Court appeared sharply divided on ideological lines today as it tackled a second major challenge to President Barack Obama's health care law, with Justice Anthony Kennedy emerging as a likely swing vote in a ruling. The 9 justices heard 85 minutes of arguments in a case brought by conservative opponents of the law, who contend its tax credits aimed at helping people afford medical insurance should not be available in most states. A ruling favoring the challengers could cripple a law dubbed Obamacare, the president's signature domestic policy achievement. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this has been your Think Tech News for Wednesday, March 4th, 2015. Ahui ho.
My wallet's stuffed with business cards now. I'm gonna